Hello and welcome into the KE Report. Shad and Corey here today as your host, and we're talking with Blackrock Silver, getting an update on all of the exploration and development work going on with the company. Blackrock Silver is traded on the TSX.V under the ticker BRC and on the OTCQX under the ticker BKRRF. We're joined today with the president and CEO of Blackrock Silver, Andrew Pollard. And Andrew, great to get you back on the show. When we last talked, it was the end of last year. You've had a ton of news flow since then, so great to get an update here to encapsulate all of it. Let's dig in first on the exploration side of the business. You've got a big program underway where you're doing both M&I conversion drilling and expansion drilling. But I think we have to lead off with the news you put out on February 24th today, where you talk about this new 500-meter zone of new strike. You put out some saucy intercepts here, and this also helps you connect some of that northwest step-out area to be able to bring in those orphaned ounces that didn't make it into the prior resource. So talk to us about some of this expansion drilling you've been doing.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. It's been too long. So just this morning, we announced that we've successfully stepped out on a panel of drill holes equating to about 500-meter expansion along strike. These are extensions of veins, and they bolt right onto our existing mine plan. And effectively, we've now cut, as you'll recall, we've got a 1 kilometer gap of vein corridor that was there between our DPB deposit and this northwest step out area, and we've now drilled out about 500 meters of that. So we've got very, very high likelihood that that whole 1 kilometer is going to be mineralized. And yeah, we're off to one hell of a start here. We hit multiple veins, a handful of veins. We hit zones up to 8 meters thick. We saw a sub-interval of up to a little over 4 kilograms per ton silver equivalent. But, this is showing that the project's poised to get a heck of a lot bigger, and it's going to happen very quickly. We've got a very, very active program lined up for this year between the M&I program, which you mentioned, and the expansion program. We've laid out something like 15,000 meters of drilling on top of the 20,000 meters we completed in the last half of last year. And we've got multiple re-rate opportunities ahead of us, given we're planning to have a resource update for Q3 of this year, and then another resource update during Q1 of next year, all of which will be rolled into a brand new PEA by Q2. So definitely a lot going on. It's like drinking from a fire hose, but the project just got a whole lot bigger.
Andrew, can you compare some of these new results of this new area, this gap area, if that's what we want to call it, in terms of grade and width of these veins compared to the known resource areas, this whole continuation theory?
Yeah, these extensions, I mean, once again, we've got this vein corridor, which, as it's currently laid out, I mean, it's bookended with mineralization on both sides, and then there's just 1 kilometer gap on the exact same vein. So all we're doing is what we've drilled today lines up very well with the mineralization you'll see on either side of it because it's the same system. So, some nice, good zones. We hit quite a few intercepts from, say, 2 meters all the way up to 8 meters, ranging from, around 200 grams all the way up to 4 kilos. So, it's just silver and gold are targeting on that initial 500 meters, which represents the southern portion of that corridor. That bolts right onto our existing mine plan at DPB. So, just right there, I mean, that's a lot of potential to add a lot of ounces very quickly. So we're going to go back right away, or as soon as we're done our M&I program over the next month or so, and then start tightening up the spacing there. And then towards the end of the year, we'll just keep focusing on tying that other 500-meter zone together. But it's very, very similar. I mean, these are, just to orient you. I mean, if you look at our mine plan, we've, the project head grade averages about 570 grams per ton. Amongst the developers in the industry, there's nothing like this. I mean, this is 55% higher head grade than the next closest developer in the industry, and we've just stepped out another 500 meters. So what we're doing here, the expansion drilling, that's focused on adding mine life at the back end. And what we're doing with the M&I program is, one, increasing the confidence and optimizing the early years of production, but we've also been successful in hitting new zones of mineralization up depth. So we've actually found a whole lot of brand new ultra high grade tons at the front end of the mine life. So we're tackling our mine life both at the front and on the back. So it's going to be, even though our economics that we laid out in that initial PEA in September of last year were pretty mouthwatering. I think by the time we get to this time next year, once we're able to get our new PEA out, it's going to be, just truly something remarkable.
Well, Andrew, just to the point you just made, that you're extending the mine life on the back end with the expansion drilling, but on the front end of the mine plan, the grade that you're finding even in this M&I drilling, and you just put out some results on the 20th that were also pretty eye-popping. You had some stuff that was 3.5 kilos, the silver equivalent, over a little bit less than a meter, but still a lot of 500,000 grams per ton silver equivalent hits in there. You're also raising the grade profile of the project. It was already high grade. It was already one of the highest grade in the industry. But you think that with all this M&I drilling that you're doing, you're going to raise the grade profile even more. What does that mean for the economics in the upcoming PEA?
Well, listen, if you raise the grade profile, I mean, especially at the beginning of at the front end of the mine life, I mean, that's going to have significant leverage on your economics. I mean, you'll see the payback period for one compress. I mean, even if we were just hitting grades in line with our resource, you'd see the average grade ratchet up because you're not penalized as much on the inverse distance cubed when it comes to the modeling. We're seeing grades significantly higher than are laid out in the resource. And this is the early years of production at the project. I mean, if you look at our PEA, you're in a stope that's 981 grams per ton silver equivalent. I mean, this has got to be one of the highest grade structures in the industry. So anytime you can mine your highest grade areas early on in the mine plan, then that has a huge positive consequence for the rest of the operation. And, to your point, yeah, we're hitting with ease these high grade shoots that were well known and well understood given the drilling we've done previously. But something that's truly phenomenal that has emerged is the fact that we've hit a whole host of mineralization up dip from where the last resource and where the current mining plan envisions. So, our mine plan effectively starts around 200 meters below surface. Well, we've hit some of our highest grade mineralization ever at the project from about 140 meters down hole. We hit up to 8 kilos in one of our intercepts, and that's brand new high grade tons being added at the very front end of the mine life. And so a lot of focus is being spent on optimizing and increasing the confidence in our early years. It's because it's that confidence and that optimization that will have huge ripple effects on the economic profile of this when all is said and done. So obviously adding mine life at the back end is great, but an ounce of gold in year one is worth more than an ounce of gold in year 8 or 9 or 10 or 12. Just given that gets discounted to kingdom come. So we think we're going to have absolutely blowout numbers, by the time we get our M&I resource out to market and then are able to incorporate that into our PEA. So stay tuned for that. That'll be in Q3, and then we'll have a lot of expansion assays coming in right around that time too. So we'll make for the project's going to take a lot of shape this year. It took a lot of shape last year, but between the drilling we're doing and the permitting endeavors we've got underway now, I mean, we're well past the days of just being a mineral inventory, stacking ounces play. This is something that can be driven forward quickly, and we've got our focus on in terms of driving it forward and getting underground.
So since these near-term catalysts and potential re-rate options are around that near-term updated resource for the M&I focus in terms of drilling, what's a reasonable expectation here, Andrew? How many ounces, silver equivalent ounces, do you think you can convert into M&I ounces that all focus on that early stage mine life?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our focus is so in our PEA as it stands at 1900 gold and 23 silver, it outlined a payback period of 2.3 years. So what we wanted to do, our goal was effectively to drill out the first 2 to 3 years of production based on that mine plan and convert it. So that's about 1 million to 1.5 million tons of material we want to move from the inferred category to M&I. Grade profile, well, there's enough data out there now where people can probably start, doing their own computations, but I think I think it's safe to say the average grade should ratchet up a fair bit, which ultimately will have a huge, huge consequence on the economics, and especially given the fact that we're hitting all this new high grade mineralization, be outer board of the existing mine plan. So Yeah, I'll leave that to the sleuths at home to play around with, but I think it's going to be truly, truly the standout number in the industry as it comes to grade profiles.
Well, Andrew, let's dig into the news that you put out last week on the 18th, where you kind of just hinted at that you're not just stacking mineral inventory now, you're actually looking forward towards development, and you brought on Westland Engineering and Environmental Services to work on the permits so that you can get underground. I mean, what your plan is to put in an underground decline and then do some test mining there, which will be a proof of concept, but it'll also allow you to drill from underground. So talk to us about this step towards development that you have laid out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, well, listen, it was only 4 years ago that we that we made this discovery, and aside from the grade and I guess the ounces and the potential that we've outlined on that front, one of the best things about our project is the fact that, it sits entirely on private land, meaning you're looking at a very, very expedited process to actually drive it forward. This is something that's not going to end up in permitting purgatory for 5 or 10 years. Our goal right now is to add as much value we can at the project level via the drill bit, get a handle on the early years in terms of the design engineering aspect of it, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to get these M&I resource out independently in the over the summer here, so that we can pass over the first couple of years of mineral inventory to our engineering team to really refine and optimize, a decline and the early aspects of the mine life, so that we're going to be driving this forward concurrently with this permitting. Really, the big idea is we want to be in a position to have permits in hand to go underground. We'll be the first group to stare these veins in the eye in 90 years since this district was last known as the richest place on earth. And getting underground, the goal there is to be in a position to have approval to do a 100,000-ton bulk sample. And as I mentioned previously, I mean, you're bulk sampling something that is currently laid out being around 981 grams per ton silver equivalent in the stope. So, you guys can have some fun with numbers at home, but 100,000 tons at those grades and input, whatever silver price you want for 2028. And yeah, this is going to be a big step forward for us. And it's going to really, once you're underground, you're underground. That's where the rubber really hits the road. And as re-rate opportunities go, permitted ounces typically command a significantly higher premium than unpermitted ones. So, we're looking at substantial re-rates over the next few years. We're finally going to have an M&I credit. We're going to have built-in upside with the expansion results we're doing. The economics of the project should meaningfully change for the better. And they were already pretty darn good to start. And, we can drive this forward through permitting very, very swiftly. So a lot going on, but it's going to be a really active few years for us here.
What about capital? How much capital is it going to take to get into that whole test mining stage?
Well, that's going to be a function of the M&I resource and the updated mine plan. The mine plan, as I mentioned, from the PEA envisioned, mining's going to start around 200 meters below surface. Well, as I said, all of this drilling that we've done so far in that area, we've brought mineralization considerably closer to surface. So that's a number that we'll get a real handle on. But just to get underground, I mean, that's not going to be all that significant, certainly in comparison to what you're looking at once you're able to get that bulk sample going.
Yeah, Andrew, it's going to be an exciting chapter for the company here as you move from all this exploration into the development. But I guess just wrap us up here with the news flow on tap, because as you've outlined, this M&I drilling will be wrapping up in the next month or so. That'll be building towards that Q3 resource update. But you also have the plan to do all this other expansion drilling. How much more drilling will you do? Does that take you through the end of the year? And then looking at that, further update the resources in Q1. Tell us about the rest of the year as far as the drilling and what's still at the assay lab. Give us an update on the whole plan here.
Oh yeah, well, in terms of I think we've got 17 drill holes at the lab right now from our M&I program pending assays. We've got two core rigs going and one RC drill 24/7. They're going to be finishing off the M&I program, I believe, some point by the end of March or early April, at which point those rigs go towards that kilometer extension. The first priority of which is just going back along this 500-meter zone that we successfully stepped out on and just tightening up that spacing there. We just closed the $13.8 million bought deal financing at the end of January, and we haven't touched any of that yet. So that's allowing us to keep the pedal to the metal in terms of drilling. And of interest, part of the M&I program that we've done right now, we've come up with a brand new target that represents a step out to the east of about, we think it could be the up dip extension of either the Bermuda or Merton vein. And we've got 5 RC holes at the lab, which are testing a 200-meter zone of extension to the east as well. And then I think we've got 3 core holes laid out there as well. So not only is this going to grow to the west at the back end of the mine life, but we're testing new, very, very shallow zones of mineralization at the very front end too. So yeah, a lot of the way the drill results will, this is going to be one of the most active stories in the industry this year. You've got 2 resources and a PEA. All within the next 12 months and a whole lot of drilling in between while we get our permitting initiative sorted. So, yeah, just putting our head down, locking in ounces, deploying capital, and hoping to see that add intrinsic value in a big way.
All right, Andrew. Well, we'll wrap it up there for today. But yeah, a lot of news flow on tap with Blackrock Silver. And for those listening in, if you want to follow along with all the news flow, definitely click on the link below this interview. It takes you right over to the Blackrock Silver website, straight to their news section where you can sign up for updates to your email inbox or just follow along with all the news as it drops. A lot of assays still pending here that we'll be talking again, I'm sure, Andrew. And as always, looking forward to our next conversation.